So Ricky, I have a question for you.
Yeah, sure.
Your hunting backpack where you're always, counting ounces and trying to get that thing as light as possible. If I gave you $700, would you sew these 11 ounces, these 2 rolls of quarters, would you permanently sew that into your hunting bag?
For $700?
Yes, I'll give you $700 if you'll permanently sew an 11-ounce weight into your hunting bag.
That's awfully tempting.
It's also kind of the decision you have between these two spotting scopes. So, you guys, I'm nervous about this review. Every time we do a review that's in any way negative, the haters come out of the woodwork, right? Because people say, well, I bought it and it's awesome, right? And people get up into this third gear, right? So both of these are great options. This is the Vortex Viper HD 20-60, and this is the Vortex Razor 27-60 by 85. So they're very, very similar in terms of specs. This one, the Razor, is $700 more. And so the question is it justified? And the reason I bring up the 11 ounces is that's the weight difference between them. And there's also a size difference between them.
Clearly.
It's 2 inches and 11 ounces smaller, the more expensive one is. And so form factor wise, that's what we're talking about.
Exactly. So I want to show you guys, we went into the sporting goods store. We were in Sportsman's Warehouse. And we have the salesman there, and he's got 3 mounts, right? He sets up the Razor, the Viper, and then a Swaro $3,000 spotting scope, all side by side, right?
Yep.
And we get them all pointed at the exact same thing. It was kind of cool.
And he had a lens focus chart. It was like a nice
really
setup,
cool.
actually.
And so Jim gets them all settled in, all zoomed in, and all focused exactly the same on this. And he's like, and looking at all of them and stuff, and he's, what do you think? And I step up to him, and I spend a couple minutes in each one. I'm looking real close, and I'm like, they all look the same to me. And I'm like, but, Jim's got a background in photography for years, been a photographer, and he's like, this one's a little clearer, this one's got a little bit of discoloration, a little bit of yellowing and stuff, and so, clearly this lens is a little bit better, and I'm like, I'll take your word for it, And I'm like, as a normal person, I can't tell the difference. Now, this was indoors, looking at a focus chart. So,
which actually indoors is not a bad place to test them. A lot of people say, oh, and you can't tell.
You go outside, right?
It's lowered light, and that's going to be more similar to a hunting situation. Daylight, super bright out there, it's going to look better than it will in a normal hunting situation.
But we thought, okay, so now we got to take these outside and we just got to do some real work. And so that's what we did. We set up the spotting scopes. We put a scope camera on each one, on each of these 2.
Yep.
And we got some footage. And I think we just need to let you guys make a decision for yourselves.
Yeah, so this is for anybody who, if you see the Razor and you're like, no, it's better. We're going to show you clips side by side, but we're not going to tell you which one is which on each one of these until after you've seen the clip. So we're going to show each clip for about 5-6 seconds. You decide which is the Razor, the more expensive one,
and which is
the Viper, the less expensive one. So here's clip number 1. All right, in that example, the one on the left was the more expensive Razor.
The one on your left.
Let's go to clip number 2. All right, in this one, the clip on the left was again the Razor. Let's go to clip number 3. On this one, the clip on the right was the Razor. On this one, the clip on the right was the Razor. So, how'd you do? So, a few caveats that we should point out right away looking at this. So, it's really hard to do a review of spotting scopes because the examples are only as good as the camera that's recording them.
Sure.
And I will say that there is an extra touch of clarity when you're actually looking through it with your eye that is lost in the camera. So specific on this example, you can't see, the rings look really mushy on the target. You can kind of barely make them out. Where when I was looking with my naked eye at this, you could pretty clearly see those rings, but the bullet holes, you still, the impacts were tough to spot. They were mushy, hard to see, right? So it's not a perfect example to show this on video, especially where we're talking about these are so close and we're trying to tell the difference. There could be something with your eye, but I will say, after being a professional photographer for a lot of years and having reviewed on a photography site, I mean, probably 100 lenses, like, the differences are really tiny. So when I look at these, look at the lens focus chart, the Razor has better acutance, but not better resolution. So sharpness is made of two things. It's so when we're talking about fine details, just how tiny of a thing can it resolve and show, that's the resolution. The acutance is the other piece of what we call sharpness, that is the contrast between those. And that's where we say it looks kind of mushy between one thing and the other. There isn't just a sharp contrast between them, right? So the general contrast is better on the Razor when you're looking at a focus chart. Again, you've got to kind of, you know, look between the spotting scopes, but you can see it. Yeah. And then the color correction is much better on the Razor. When you look through the Viper at a lens focus chart, you see, ooh, we're slightly off color, right? Yeah. But I mean, we are slightly off color.
And I think that's the key there, is that if you set up one of these for me, and I walked in the room and I went and looked at it, and then I went and looked at some other stuff, and while behind my back, you switch it out, and you put the other one there and say, hey, will you take another look through here? I wouldn't know that I was looking through a different spotting scope.
I wouldn't know either.
Exactly.
If I were looking at a lens focus chart, I might get it.
Yeah.
If I were just looking at the woods, no way. I would not know.
And that's the key here. The general wisdom out there is, when it comes to spotting scopes, spend as much as you can. And
that sounds like marketing to me.
I know. We believe that. We went there, and we went to the sporting goods store, and we wanted this one. But the store we went to at first was out. We're like, well, we'll try out the Viper instead. And then we went to a different store a few days later, and this one was actually in stock. We're like, oh, great, we want that one. Let's go return the cheap one. But before we did that, we're like, we got to test these things side by side. But in the second store is where that story happened. They had both in stock, and they put them side by side. And yeah, okay.
And the other thing that makes it hard to tell the difference is, if you're not a really skilled photographer or know a lot about the optics, there's enough variability in just setting the focus that you could totally offset any gains you'd get. Very minor, you'd get gains to the Razor. I mean, just it actually takes some skill to learn how to get that perfect sharpness in here. Most people are going to be close, but not quite spot on. And so if you don't have the skill to use it, there won't, even in a scientific way, you won't even notice it. But I'm telling you, I am a snob with lenses. I totally am. And as far as optically, I would just pick the Viper.
Exactly. So here's the thing. We are backpacking in a few miles for our next hunt. And in doing that, would it be nice to have the slightly smaller,
this won't even fit in some side pockets on packs.
I can hardly tell the difference in the weight. 11 ounces when you're backpacking, you want to minimize weight as much as possible. And yes, that's big. I have a big pack. I have a 6,000 cubic inch pack. I'm not too worried about space. I'm not real worried about carrying this thing. And so for me, it's not worth the $700, which is why I would take your 2 rolls of quarters and I would permanently zip them into my pack if you're going to give me $700. And that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, the weight is like, it's the weight of 2 baseballs is 11 ounces. For those of you who are heart surgeons, it's about the weight of a human heart. It's not that much. Yeah. But it is. I mean, every ounce counts for sure.
And if you're not backwoods hunting, absolutely, why would you pay more so that you can have a slightly smaller version of what's really the same thing?
it's a tough choice between these. In the end, we chose to just go with the Viper. I'll take the bet. Optically, again, even being a little bit of a snob with lenses and stuff, it's just not worth it for me. But again, there's nothing wrong with this choice. It's newer, it's very slightly improved optics, it's a better form factor, it's lighter. So there are good reasons to choose both of these, but that's our take on it. If you were helped out by this review, please give us a subscribe and like the video. We're really working hard to build up this Backfire channel.